Welcome everyone to Mozart's Eine, Kleine, Nachtmusik, Section A, Minuet Analysis. So, before we start, we're going to need a few things. We're going to need a blank score for you to write up the notes that we're going to be making. This can be downloaded on Google Classroom, or you can email me and I'll send you the blank scores. You'll need up to 8 different colour pencils. Now this is for all the different elements that we're looking at. Using different colours will help to make it stand out when you're revising, and it will also help to keep the information in. And you're going to need a blank piece of paper to write up any answers for the questions that happen through this little lesson. Why do we analyse? Really to understand what Mozart did, how Mozart composed music. This is going to help us understand the following elements and how he used them in his compositions, such as melody, articulation, dynamic, structure, texture, harmony, instruments, rhythm and tempo. And also, the biggest one is it's going to help us with our own composition, because we may use some of his thought process when we're composing. We're going to start off looking at Minuet Section A, which is 8 bars long. So it lasts from bar 1 to 8. We're going to be looking to start with at melody and dynamics. Now I've used different colours. I've used yellow and blue, so I'd recommend you also use colours because it will help to make it stand out. To start with, Mozart uses an anacrusis in the melody in violin 1 and 2, and an anacrusis is literally an upbeat, and you can see it here as it's been circled. Violin 1 and 2 play that upbeat in the melody. The melody could really be described, which is only played in violin 1 and 2, as conjunct, so it's stepwise, and also diatonic. So this means that only notes that are used in the key signature. So we're in the key of G, so we're only using notes that are in the key of G. We're not using any sharps or flats. He does use a sequence in the melody in bars 6 and 7 in violins 1 and 2, which is just there. And that little sequence just literally means that we have a little melody. So this, A, G, A, B. And he literally copies and pastes it, but he knocks it down 1. He does the same here, so it goes F, E, F, G, and he knocks it down to B, A, B, C. So it's the same pattern, but it's just moved down. We'd call that a sequence. He also uses ornamentation. Ornamentation, a bit like at Christmas when you put ornaments on your Christmas tree. This is decoration. It can make a melody sound even more interesting and catchy. In bars 6 and 7, he uses a trill in violins 1 and 2. Now this can make a melody, it can enhance a melody and make it sound really interesting and decorative. He also uses an appoggiatura in bar 4, also seen in violin 1 and 2. It's worth noting here that the melody is mainly played in violin 1 and violin 2 in this section. In terms of dynamic, I'm now using blue, the dynamic is forte, all the way through section A of the minuet. So this is a nice loud section, and the dynamic never changes. If you need to make any notes, pause the video now and then press play and we'll move on. What can you remember? We're going to have a knowledge dump of everything you've learned so far about melody and dynamic. Pause the video, use the score if possible, and if not, if you don't want to use the score, that is also fine. But let's see what you can remember. Pause the video, and when you press play, the answers will be available. Here are some of the answers you could have mentioned. There's an anacrusis in the beginning in violin 1 and 2. The melody is conjunct. It is diatonic, so it's only really notes that belong to that key signature. There are ornaments used, so in bar 4 we have an appoggiatura in violin 1 and 2. In bar 6 and 7 we have trills that are used in violin 1 and 2. And there is a sequence in the melody in bars 6 and 7. It's also worth noting that only violin 1 and 2 play the melody In terms of dynamics, it's 40 all the way through, so it's loud. We're going to be looking at section A again, but this time we're going to focus on texture, instruments, so how is used the instruments, rhythm and tempo. I would strongly recommend you use 4 different colours. I've had to use the same colours. Unfortunately, yellow and blue is used again, but please use different colours and please create a key. Looking at texture, it's worth noting that in bars 1 to 5, in violin 1 and 2, he's used an octave texture. This literally means, if you think of octopus, octagon, 8, they all have 8 in common. It means 8 notes apart. So we can see here it goes D, G, A, B, C. Violin 2 also plays D, G, A, B, C. So they're playing the same notes, but just one is higher and one is lower, 8 notes apart. In bar 1 to 4 in the viola and cello, he's also using an octave texture here as well. However, he doesn't keep it the same all the way through, he changes the texture. And from bars 5 to 8, we would describe this texture as homophonic. Homophonic basically means everything is moving at the same time in harmony. You could also describe it from bars 6 to 8 as 4-part harmony, because from bars 6 to 8 everyone has a different note and there's 4 parts, 4 instruments, 4 parts, so that would be 4-part harmony. In terms of instruments and how he's used the instruments, in bar 7 and 8 he's used a double stop. This means playing 2 notes at the same time, and this is found in the viola, and you can see it just like there. So we can see 2 notes played at the same time, and this is used on a string instrument, in the viola, predominantly. It's also worth noting that we would describe this band, this group, this ensemble, we would describe it as a string orchestra or a string quartet. And this is very typical of the classical period. So it's something that would have been used quite a lot, a band like this, an ensemble like this. Don't be put off by the Italian here. So we have violin 1, violino 1, violino 2 is violin 2, viola stays the same, and violoncello is just a cello. In terms of the instruments, we have the viola, which uses the alto clef. And you can see here with my cursor circling it. And the alto clef always points to C. We're going to be discussing that in a few minutes' time. In terms of the tempo, so we're now looking at tempo, the tempo is allegretto, which literally means brisk, lively. It's about 110 beats per minute. This is also one of the easiest ways that you know you are in the minuet section A, because it is only here that you will ever see the tempo. You will never see it anywhere else. So you know you are in section A of the minuet when you see it. In terms of the rhythm, and rhythm basically means speed of notes. We would describe the rhythm as being on the beat, so each and every note is on that beat. He's mainly using crotchets, quavers and minims. They're the 3 basic rhythms that he has used in section A of the minuet. Something else to note, as obvious it may be, is the time signature, which is 3/4. Basically, 3 beats in a bar, 3 crotchet beats in a bar. This is very typical of a minuet, which was originally a dance, and it always had a 3/4 time signature. It's worth pausing at this moment to make any notes that you've not made before we move on. Right, now we're ready to just have a bit of a quick break, but also to learn more in the process. Do you remember me saying the alto clef? It's the alto clef. It actually points to C, which in actual fact is this C in treble clef. We should be having an aha moment now. Aha. Now for you to make the grade, for you to get those high grades, in your exam you may be asked to transpose, which means change a note from alto clef to treble clef. Always remember, it points to C, and it is that C. So the similarities, that's also got a line through it, and that's got a line through it. So always remember where you are and what it is, and that will help you out when you come to transpose, and this will help you to make the top grades. We're going to be looking now at harmony and tonality of section A of the minuet. For this you can use the same colour. Harmony talks about chords. Tonality talks about the key. The key of this piece, or the key of this section, is G major. It only has one sharp, which is an F sharp, which I've just circled. That is the key it is in. So if you remember me saying the melody is diatonic, because all the notes belong to G major, that is why, because the key signature, G major, has one sharp. At bar 4, the music does briefly modulate. Now modulate means to change key. And he's changed key to D major because, and D major has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. You can tell this because of the C sharp that's been used there. There is a perfect cadence at the end, and a perfect cadence sounds finished. It makes the music sound finished, like a full stop in English, end of a sentence. For this you're going to need chord 5 followed by chord 1. Now chord 1 would be G, and chord 5 would be D, because you go G, A, B, C, D. D is 5 and G is chord 1 because we're in the key of G. And that creates your perfect cadence. You might be able to see the dotted lines. There is the perfect cadence. Now, for you to make the grade, we're going to need to learn a bit more about the harmony. What's also really worth noting here before we move on is the chords move very quick in this piece of music, which we're going to find out about. And we'd call that a fast harmonic rhythm. We'll discuss that later. So, some key chords for you to make the top grade. There's some key chords for us to know. In bar 1, beat 1, he uses 1B. That literally means first inversion, so chord 1 is G, B, D. But he's used the B in the bass. Now this can make it sound quite weak. That's quite interesting, because Mozart probably should have started it stronger, but he's actually decided to start it a bit weaker. Bar 1, beat 2, he's also used chord 5, first inversion. So chord 5 is D, F, A, but he's decided to put the F in the bass. Again, this can create a bit of a weak sound. So again, that's quite interesting. Bar 2, he's used chord 2. That's a minor chord. So this is the first time we hear a minor chord. Something that sounds a bit sad. In bar 4, you'll see it says V, which means 5/1. This means It is actually chord 5 in the key of G, but because we have changed key, because we're modulating, it would be chord 1 in D major. But that is a really interesting chord to know, and that would be called a dominant chord. Speaking of dominant chords, right over here in bar 6, beat 2, we've got a dominant 7th. This is a very typical chord. So we have D, F, A, but we add the 7th note up. So count with me. D is 1, E 2, F, G, A, B, C. What number is C? Hopefully you got 7. So that basically just says play your chord 5, D, F sharp A, and just add the 7th note on from the bottom, which is a C. And the dominant 7th, or the V7 chord, is something that was used quite a lot in the classical period. That's because of the C, which is there, that's C. In bar 7, beat 1, he uses chord 6. And again, another minor chord. That's a real significant chord to note. Followed by chord 2 in first inversion. So chord 2 in this case is A, C, E. However, he's used the C in the bass. 5, 7, followed by 1 to make it a perfect cadence. Remember, 5, 7 is also described as a dominant 7th chord. That is also a really good chord sequence. 2, B, 5, 7, 1. That's a really good chord sequence to use in your composition if you want something to sound finished. Do you remember me saying about the harmonic rhythm? Harmonic rhythm basically means how quick a chord changes. So we have harmonic, which means chord, and rhythm, which means speed. In this piece, or in this section, section A, we would describe the harmonic rhythm as being quick. He's basically changing the chords on every beat. Now I could write all the chords in for you, but these are the most important chords. But the harmonic rhythm is very quick, and it makes an impression, and the chords give the impression that the music is moving quick. Get ready to pause. Let's see what you can remember. You're going to recap everything you can remember about section A of the minuet, writing it down on a separate piece of paper without looking at your score. What I want you to do is write down as much as possible for melody, dynamics, texture, harmony, instruments and rhythm, writing down anything you can remember. And if possible, try to include the bar numbers. Pause the video to write it all down. How did you get on? Use your score to check your answers. Well done, you have now completed your analysis of section A of the minuet. Hopefully you've used different colours. Hopefully you have also written it all down, and the best way of doing it is to revise it by keep reading over it, covering it over and write it down on a piece of paper, seeing what you can remember. Well done, and join me for section B of the minuet. See you soon.